The ocean is ablaze. From 5,000 feet, Major Nathaniel Blackwood watches the Bismarck Sea transform into something from mythology. 8 Japanese ships burn in a line stretching 20 miles across blue water. Black smoke rises in columns so thick they blot out the morning sun. The smell reaches him even here, even through the sealed cockpit, oil and cordite and burning flesh. His hands rest steady on the controls now, but they won't be steady later. Behind him, his co-pilot, Captain Morrison, vomits into his oxygen mask for the second time. The intercom carries the sound of other men breathing hard, processing what they've just done in 15 minutes of sustained violence. Nate's voice, when he finally speaks, comes out hollow. "I never wanted to be a hero." The words disappear into the thunder of Wright's Cyclone engines. Below, 8,000 men are dying. Above, 13 B-25 Mitchell bombers bank toward home, their gun barrels still smoking, their bomb bays empty, their crews forever changed. 15 minutes, that's all it took. But to understand how the ocean came to burn, you have to go back 3 days, to a man sitting in darkness, drowning in failure, trying to forget. 3 days earlier, Port Moresby, New Guinea, February 28, 1943. The bar has no name and fewer standards. Corrugated tin roof, wooden plank walls, whiskey that tastes like kerosene cut with regret. Nate Blackwood sits alone in the corner, his flight jacket open despite regulations, his eyes fixed on the amber liquid in his glass. He's 35 years old and looks a decade older. 6 weeks ago, he led 12 bombers over Rabaul Harbor. Perfect formation, textbook approach, 7,000 feet, just like the manual said. The Japanese gunners tracked them the entire way. Every bomb fell harmlessly into the ocean while flak tore his squadron to pieces. 4 planes lost, 16 men dead, all because he followed doctrine. The whiskey burns going down but doesn't burn enough. A shadow falls across his table. Colonel Davis, 52 years old, grey temples, eyes that witnessed Singapore fall and the Philippines burn. "General Kenny wants to see you." Nate doesn't look up. "Tell him I'm dead, Bob." "You're 35. Then tell him I've retired." "Same difference." Davis sits anyway. Outside, New Guinea rain hammers the tin roof like judgment. "There's a convoy," Davis says quietly. 8 destroyers, 8 transports, 6,900 soldiers from the Japanese 51st Division, plus another 1,500 sailors. They left Rabaul this morning. If they reach Lae, we lose New Guinea within 3 months. Nate takes another drink. "Send someone else." "There is no one else. Not for what Kenny has planned." "Then you're fresh out of luck." Davis leans forward, voice dropping. "Your brother was at Guadalcanal, wasn't he?" Nate's hand freezes halfway to his mouth. "Don't." Lieutenant Thomas Blackwood, November 9th, 42. Japanese reinforcements overran his position because convoys like this one kept getting through. The glass hits the table hard enough to crack. "I said don't. This convoy carries the men who'll kill more brothers, unless someone stops them, unless someone tries something new. New got 16 of my men killed. No, old got them killed, flying high, flying predictable, flying the way the Japanese expect." Davis stands. "Kenny's waiting. Oh, 600 tomorrow. If you don't show, I'll tell him you're dead like you said." He walks out into the rain, leaving Nate alone with his whiskey and his brother's final letter. "Don't worry about me, Nate. You're the one flying into hell. I'm just waiting in a foxhole." 3 days later, they found Thomas scattered across a ridge the Marines had already bled for twice. Nate closes his eyes. The rain keeps falling. Dawn arrives merciless and bright. Nate stands outside the operations tent, uniform still reeking of last night's whiskey. The sun hasn't cleared the mountains, but the heat already presses down, thick and wet. He should walk away. Instead, his feet carry him forward through the tent flap into a room full of men who look at him like a ghost. General George Kenney stands at the map table, short, compact, 3 moves ahead of everyone. Beside him, a tall man in coveralls covered in grease and welding burns. "Major Blackwood." Kenney's voice carries no warmth, just acknowledgement. "Glad you could join us." "Sir." Kenney taps the map. Red circles mark Japanese positions. Blue arrows show American forces, thin and desperate. March 3rd, 48 hours from now. 8 Japanese destroyers escort 8 transports from Rabaul to Leh. They're carrying the 51st Division, infantry, artillery, supplies. If they land, New Guinea falls. If New Guinea falls, Australia is next. He pauses, letting gravity settle. Our spotters confirm they'll pass through the Bismarck Sea at dawn. One chance, one window. We miss it, we lose the war in the Pacific. Nate stares at the map. At the tiny blue arrows representing men like Thomas. "You want a high-altitude bombing run?" "No." The word hangs like a grenade with the pin pulled. Kenney nods to the stranger. The man in coveralls steps forward, and Nate sees his eyes that have lost everything and decided to make it count. "Major, this is Garrett Callahan. He's about to show you how we win this war." The workshop in Brisbane might as well be on another planet. Nate stands before a B-25 Mitchell that looks like it's been gutted by a surgeon with a vendetta. The nose is gone, the bombardier's station ripped out. In its place, 8 .50 caliber Browning machine guns point forward like the fingers of an angry god. Garrett Callahan runs his hand along the gun mounts with something approaching reverence. 50 caliber, 8 of them, synchronized. They fire 100 rounds per second, armor-piercing incendiary. He looks at Nate. "When you pull that trigger, Major, you're not dropping bombs. You're sawing ships in half." Nate circles the aircraft slowly. It's monstrous, wrong, perfect. "The Japanese won't know what hit them," Garrett continues. They're expecting bombers, high altitude, predictable. But you're not going high, are you?" "How low?" 50 feet. Nate stops walking. "That's suicide. That's evolution." Garrett moves to a chalkboard covered in calculations. The Japanese convoy has over 150 anti-aircraft guns, all angled up, all trained for altitude. Down low, they can't depress their barrels fast enough, and their radar won't pick you up until you're already on them. Assuming we don't fly into a wave first. Assuming you trust yourself more than doctrine. The words land like a punch. Garrett picks up a photograph from the workbench. Worn at the edges, a woman with kind eyes. 2 little girls in matching dresses. "Manila, December 8th, 41. Japanese bombed the airfield where my family was waiting." His voice doesn't shake, but something in his face does. "I was 300 yards away, close enough to see, not close enough to help." He sets the photo down carefully. "I spent a year designing this, making it mean something." He meets Nate's eyes. "These guns are my answer to the question I've been asking for 16 months. How do I make their deaths matter?" Nate understands perfectly. "Show me." Training begins at first light. 50 feet feels like nothing from the ground. From a B-25 doing 280 miles per hour, it feels like threading a needle at the speed of violence. First attempt, Nate pulls up at 100 feet, heart hammering. Second attempt, 70. By the 5th run, he's skimming waves, close enough that prop wash kicks up spray against his windscreen like buckshot. Behind him, Lieutenant Fletcher Hayes, 26, fresh from Texas, throws up twice before getting it right. Captain Morrison clips a wave with landing gear and nearly cartwheels into the ocean. But they learn, because the alternative is 7,000 feet and watching bombs miss while friends burn. On the 3rd day, Kenney arrives with intelligence. Confirmed. 8 Fubuki-class destroyers, 8 transports, departed Rabaul 0600 this morning. They enter the Bismarck Sea at dawn, March 3rd. Nate studies reconnaissance photographs. The ships look small from altitude. Toys on blue carpet. He thinks about how they'll look from 50 feet. Total enemy strength? 6,900 soldiers, 1,500 sailors, 8,000 men. If they reach Leh, they'll push us back to Port Moresby within a month. Destroyer escorts? Yukikaze, Asashio, Arashio, Tokitsukaze. 4 more we're still identifying. Each carries 25mm AA guns, 5-inch mounts. The transports add another 60 guns. Kenny taps the photo. They call it the Umbrella of Steel. Fletcher Hayes, listening from his cockpit, speaks for the first time in hours. "How do we get through that, sir?" Nate looks at Garrett, who's been watching with those eyes that have already seen everything burn. "We don't go through it," Nate says. "We go under it." "Sir?" "We'll have diversions, high-altitude bombers, B-17s at 7,000 feet from the north. Every gun on those ships will point at the sky." He traces a line on the photograph, low across water. "While they're looking up, we come in from the southwest, 50 feet, full throttle. By the time they see us, it's over." Kenny nods slowly. "You'll have 13 B-25s for the strike, 13 Royal Australian Air Force Beaufighters for high cover and reconnaissance. That's everything I can give you." "It's enough." "Is it? Because if you're wrong, Major, 13 planes and 150 men die. And that convoy reaches Leh anyway." Nate meets his gaze. "If I'm right, we change the war. And if you're wrong, then I fail again, but at least I'll fail trying something new." The night before, Nate can't sleep. He walks the airstrip, watching mechanics make final checks. 13 B-25s sit in a row, black paint gleaming under work lights. Beyond them, 13 Beaufighters, lighter, faster, built for reconnaissance. Fletcher Hayes finds him near the fuel dump. "Sir, can I ask something?" "Quick, Lieutenant." "Are we really doing this, flying at the water, shooting ships like paper targets?" Nate takes a drag from a cigarette he doesn't remember lighting. "Yes. That's insane." "Probably." Hayes shifts his weight, young and trying not to show fear. "My girl Sarah thinks I'm coming home a hero. I keep wondering what she'd say if she knew I'm scared every single day." Nate flicks the cigarette into darkness. "You want to know a secret, Lieutenant?" "Sir?" "Heroes are just people too scared to quit." He starts walking back. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow you'll see things you can't unsee. The only way through is forward." Hayes stands alone in the dark, processing that. Above, stars turn indifferent. Across the Bismarck Sea, on the destroyer Yukikaze's bridge, Captain Kenji Morita watches those same stars and feels at peace. 42 years old, career naval officer. He's escorted convoys across these waters 30 times without incident. The routine has become safety. Behind him, AEA crews run final drills. 25mm guns traverse smoothly. 5-inch mounts elevate, depress, elevate. Perfect synchronization, perfect discipline. Lieutenant Sato approaches with the evening report. "All stations ready, Captain. Admiral Yamada sends compliments." "Weather?" "Clear skies forecast through dawn. Excellent visibility." Morita nods. "Excellent visibility means American reconnaissance will spot them, which means bombers will come. High altitude, predictable, easy targets." From his pocket, he removes a photograph. His wife, Yuki, daughters Akiko and Fumiko, 7 and 5, smiling in school uniforms. He took this 6 months ago, before the war changed everything. "Sir?" Sato watches him. "Just remembering. My youngest asked if Americans can fly. I told her no. I told her they drop bombs from so high, they can't even see what they're hitting. It's true, sir. We've repelled every attack this year. Yes. Morita tucks the photo away. That's what I told her. But tonight, for reasons he can't explain, unease creeps in. The stars keep turning. The ocean stays dark. And somewhere south, engines begin to warm. March 3rd, 1943. 04:30 hours. Nate stands on the flight line watching his squadron perform final checks. 13 B-25 Mitchells, black as sin, armed with enough .50 caliber ammunition to shred steel, each carrying two 500-pound bombs modified for skip bombing, designed to bounce across water before slamming into hulls below the waterline. Beyond them, 13 Beaufighters prepare for high cover. Garrett Callahan appears with a thermos of terrible coffee. I won't be there, he says, not apologizing, just stating fact. I know. But every bullet, every gun mount, every weld, that's me, that's my family. You're carrying us. Nate takes the coffee. Bitter and thick. Perfect. If this works, when this works, Garrett corrects. When this works, it won't be because of courage. It'll be because someone decided tradition wasn't worth dying for. Garrett smiles sadly. The Japanese believe in honor, in doctrine, in doing things the way they've always been done. He looks at the B-25s, at the monstrous guns. We believe in adaptation. Go teach them the difference. They shake hands. Two men who've lost too much. Two men who've decided loss has to mean something. At 5 o'clock, engines roar to life. Nate sits in Hellfire's cockpit, feeling the airframe shudder as 4,000 horsepower strains against brakes. Left and right, his squadron does the same. A line of predators waiting. Radio crackles. Hellfire, you're cleared for takeoff. Weather clear. Target confirmed. Good hunting. Nate releases brakes. The B-25 surges forward, eating runway. 50 knots. 70.
100. The tail rises, the nose follows, then they're airborne, climbing into a sky just beginning to lighten. One by one, bombers follow, 13 shadows rising. Behind them, Beaufighters climb higher, spreading out for reconnaissance. Port Moresby falls away into darkness. Ahead, somewhere beyond the horizon, the Bismarck Sea waits. Calm, peaceful, about to become hell. Nate descends, 400 feet, 300, 200.
At 50 feet, he levels off, the altimeter needle barely moving, whitecaps so close he can see individual waves breaking. Morrison white-knuckles the yoke. Jesus, Nate. Not quite, but close. The formation spreads behind him. 12 B-25s flying in pairs, so low their prop wash leaves trails on water like racing boats. Above, Beaufighters circle, watching for Japanese fighters that intelligence says won't come. Nate checks his watch. 6:15, 30 minutes to contact. He thinks about Captain Morita on his bridge, about confidence that comes from being right 30 times, about how quickly confidence becomes arrogance and arrogance becomes death. He thinks about Thomas bleeding out on Guadalcanal because convoys kept getting through. He thinks about Garrett's wife and daughters, burned alive because someone believed planes couldn't touch the ground. And he thinks about the next 15 minutes. Hayes's voice crackles through radio, young and scared. Sir, I can see the horizon getting lighter. I know. That means they can see us. Not yet. Nate pushes throttles forward. 280. The B-25 shudders. But soon, he flips the master arm switch. 8 .50 caliber Brownings charge with a sound like rolling thunder. Lock and load, gentlemen. Time to teach the Imperial Japanese Navy what happens when you stop learning. The sun breaks over the horizon. Golden light spills across the Bismarck Sea. And in the distance, impossibly small, a line of ships appears. 8 destroyers, 8 transports. the umbrella of steel. Nate's hand tightens on the trigger. All aircraft, Hellfire leader, maintain formation. Stay low, wait for my mark. His heart hammers, his hands steady. The ocean rushes past at 300 feet per second. Ahead, Captain Kenji Morita lifts his binoculars to scan the southern horizon. Seeing nothing, suspecting nothing, believing, as he's believed 30 times before, that the ocean belongs to him, he has no idea how wrong he is. 2 miles, 1 mile, Nate can see them clearly now. Grey steel against blue water, the rising sun reflecting off hulls, beautiful and doomed. Stand by, 800 yards, 600. The first lookout spots them. An alarm screams, too late. Now! And the ocean explodes. The first thing Captain Kenji Morita sees is light, not sunlight, something else. A line of silver flashes low against water, moving fast. His brain refuses to accept it. Aircraft don't fly at wave height. It's suicide. Then the alarm screams, "Aircraft, low altitude, bearing 180. Morita spins, lifting binoculars. For 1 perfect second, his mind can't process what his eyes show. 13 shapes, black against blue, skimming the ocean so low their propellers kick up spray, coming straight at him. All guns engage, but the guns point at the sky. At 7,000 feet, where American bombers are supposed to be. Where doctrine says they'll always be. The 25mm crews scramble, trying to depress barrels, too slow. Lieutenant Sato stands frozen. "Captain, they're not climbing." "I know," Admiral Yamada's voice crackles from the flagship. "All vessels, concentrate fire." The convoy erupts. 150 guns open up, filling sky with tracers and explosive shells. Red lines arch upward, blooming into black flowers. Useless. Because Nate Blackwood isn't in the sky. 800 yards. Nate sees everything. Grey paint on hulls, white water at bows, tiny figures running across decks, mouths open in shouts he can't hear over engine roar. Morrison is praying, or cursing, hard to tell. 600 yards. The destroyer's forward gun swings toward them, like watching someone try to swat a bullet. Nate's thumb rests on the trigger. 850 calibers, 4,000 rounds ready. Each bullet weighs 2 ounces. Each can punch through an inch of steel. He thinks about Garrett's wife and daughters, about Thomas dying in a foxhole, about Captain Morita on that bridge, about the photograph in his pocket. 400 yards. Hayes's voice cracks through radio. "Sir, I can't." "So am I, Lieutenant, so am I." 200 yards. Through the gun sight, he sees Morita's face, sees the exact moment, understanding blooms like horror. This is not a bombing run. This is execution. 100 yards. Now! 8 guns erupt as one. The world becomes light and thunder. Survivors will never describe the sound right. It's not machine gun fire. It's continuous, overwhelming, drowning out thought itself. 900 rounds in 8 seconds. Armor-piercing incendiary, glowing red as they scream across water. The first rounds hit Yukikaze's bridge. Morita sees them coming, has time for one thought. This is not how... Then windows explode inward and the world becomes steel and blood. Lieutenant Sato simply ceases to exist. One moment standing, the next a red mist. The helm disintegrates, navigation table shatters, radio console erupts in sparks and screaming metal. Morita is thrown backward, shoulder torn open by a bullet meant for someone else. He hits the deck hard, vision swimming, ears ringing. Above him, the bridge is gone, replaced by open sky and the smell of cordite and burning flesh. He tries to stand, can't. His legs don't work. He looks down, wishes he hadn't. From his pocket, the photograph flutters free, carried on the wind of Nate's passing. Yuki, Akiko, Fumiko. He reaches for it, Doesn't make it. Nate banks hard. Right. Vision graying from G-force. Behind him, Yukikaze's bridge smokes, but he's not done. Release. Morrison hits the switch. Two 500-pound bombs drop. They hit water once, twice, three times, skipping like stones from a giant's hand. The fourth impact is against Yukikaze's hull, 3 feet below waterline. The explosion lifts the 3,000-ton destroyer from the ocean. Nate feels it through the airframe, a shudder, a pressure wave that makes his teeth ache. He pulls up, clearing the fireball by 20 feet. In his mirror, he watches Yukikaze break, not sink, break. The bomb detonated in the engine room, steam pipes rupture. Fuel tanks ignite. The ship's back snaps with a sound like God breaking a stick. The bow lifts. The stern settles. Between them, open ocean and twisted metal. Nate banks away. I saw his face. I looked him in the eyes and killed him. Morrison's voice quiet. Jesus Christ. Check fire. Status report. Status? We just killed 1,000 men in 8 seconds. Give me a status! Morrison flinches. Forces himself to look at instruments instead of carnage. All aircraft accounted for. Hellfire 2 engaging transport Najima, 3 and 4 converging on Asashio. His voice breaks. They're shredding everything, Nate. Below, the Bismarck Sea has become a slaughterhouse. Captain Wilson's B-25 screams in from the east. Transport Najima, 6,000 tons of steel. In her holds, 900 men huddle in darkness, wondering why the ship shakes, why alarms scream. They're still wondering when Wilson opens fire. His 8 guns walk across Najima's deck like brutal fingers. Lifeboats shatter. Deck guns explode. Men running for cover are cut in half. Commander Ito stands on the bridge shouting orders nobody can hear. Wilson's skip bombs hit perfectly. The first explodes against hull. The second punches through into cargo hold. 900 men packed in darkness hear a sound like a door slamming. Then the world becomes fire. The explosion blows out every hatch. Flames roar up, seeking oxygen, finding men instead. Soldiers who survived Guadalcanal die without ever seeing their killer. The ship lists hard. Water pours through ruptured hull. Oil spreads across surface, thick and black, already burning. Commander Ito, uniform on fire, stumbles to the rail. Below, men jump into water turning into a furnace. He watches one soldier, can't be more than 19, leap clear only to land in an oil slick that ignites. The boy's scream lasts 3 seconds. Feels like forever. Ito closes his eyes, steps over the rail, doesn't scream at all. On flagship Shirayuki, Admiral Takeshi Yamada watches his convoy die. 55 years old, veteran of Tsushima, believer in discipline, precision, superiority of Japanese naval doctrine. For 40 years he's known one truth: proper tactics, properly executed, cannot be defeated. In 3 minutes that truth is proven a lie. Yukikaze broken and sinking. Nojima a floating tomb. Destroyer Asashio, hit by 2 B-25s from opposite directions, simply gone. His communications officer, Lieutenant Tanaka, appears, face white, eyes too wide. Admiral, signal Rabaul for air support. Yamada almost laughs. Air support from 200 miles away. By the time fighters arrive, there'll be nothing left. No, sir. This battle is already over, Lieutenant. We simply haven't finished dying yet. He tracks a B-25 through binoculars, so low he can see the pilot's face. Young, maybe 35. Focused, not cruel, not gleeful, just doing a job. These are demons wearing machine skin. A B-25 roars past, guns blazing, bridge windows shatter. Tanaka falls without sound, chest opened by bullets that keep going through the steel bulkhead. Yamada doesn't move. He's thinking about the report he'll write if he survives, trying to find words for the unexplainable. We were defeated by innovation, by an enemy willing to abandon doctrine for adaptation. The ship shudders. Bombs hit aft. Deck tilts. Yamada grips the rail, watches his navy burn. Understands finally that wars aren't won by the most disciplined. They're won by the most willing to change. Fletcher Hayes flies Hellfire 6 with tears streaming down his face. 26 years old. He's killed at least 200 men in 7 minutes, and he can't stop. His hands move automatically. Trigger, release, bank, line up next target. Training takes over, muscle memory. Endless hours turning men into machines, but his mind is somewhere else. Sarah, her letters full of news from home, love and pride and certainty. He's doing something noble. My hero, she calls him. He wonders what she'd call him if she could see this. The transport he just strafed. The lifeboats he destroyed because orders are orders and leave nothing afloat means exactly that. The men in water trying to swim through burning oil, uniforms melting into skin. Hellfire 6 status? Nate's voice. Calm, professional. Hayes tries to answer. Voice won't work. Clears throat. Hellfire 6, 3 targets destroyed. Ammunition 60%. Copy. Continue attack pattern. Sir, I know, Lieutenant, but we finished the mission. Hayes blinks away tears. Below, a lifeboat full of Japanese soldiers rows desperately from a burning transport. Not shooting, not fighting, just trying to survive. Orders are clear, leave nothing afloat. He lines up the shot. Finger tightens. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. 8 guns roar. The lifeboat disintegrates. Fletcher Hayes learns what it costs to be a hero. Minute 10. The ocean burns. Literally. Thousands of gallons of fuel oil spread across water, burning with heat that turns air itself into shimmer and distortion. Smoke rises in black columns miles high, blocking the sun. Nate pulls Hellfire to 200 feet for a clear view. It's not a battle anymore, it's massacre. 7 of 8 transports gone, sunk or sinking or burning so fiercely they might as well be. Destroyers barely better, Yukikaze broken and listing, Asashio gone entirely, Arashio dead in water, crew abandoning ship. Only Tokitsukaze still fights, 25mm guns tracking, firing in short, desperate bursts. Too little, too late. Wilson's voice crackles. Hellfire leader, this is 2, Winchester. No bombs, no ammo. Request permission to return. Nate checks ammunition. 40 rounds left, maybe 50. All aircraft, if you're Winchester, form up and head home. Everyone else, 1 more pass. Sir? Hayes. His voice sounds dead. Do we have to? Nate looks down at burning sea, at men in water, at ships struggling to stay afloat. He thinks about Thomas, about Garrett's family, about every American soldier who'll live because this convoy didn't reach Leh. Yes, Lieutenant, we have to. He banks around for the final run. Minute 15. Tokitsukaze dies last. Commander Yasumi Doi refused to abandon ship even after the bridge took a direct hit. Even after half his crew was dead. Even after it became clear this battle could not be won. He stands at the helm, one hand on wheel, the other pressed against the wound in his side that won't stop bleeding. Around him, fires rage. Smoke fills air, the smell of burning metal and flesh. Through shattered windows he sees the last B-25 lining up. Good. Let it be quick. It isn't. 850s rake, Tokitsukaze bow to stern. Every round finds metal. Every impact tears through steel. The forward magazine detonates, explosion tearing the ship's nose clean off. The destroyer lurches forward, momentum carrying her down into water, rushing through 100 ruptures. Doi doesn't try to escape. He stands at his post, hand on wheel, and rides his ship to the bottom. Last thing he sees is sunlight filtering down through water, turning everything green and peaceful. Last thing he thinks is a prayer for his emperor, for his family, for an enemy that fought without honor, but won anyway. Then ocean closes over him. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea ends. Nate climbs to 5,000 feet, levels off, looks back. The ocean burns for 20 miles. Black smoke rises into blue sky, creating a pillar visible from 100 miles. Debris floats in patches thick enough from altitude it looks like solid ground. Bodies, hundreds, maybe thousands. He doesn't want to know. Radio crackles. Hellfire Leader, this is 2. All aircraft accounted for. No casualties, no damage. We did it, sir. No casualties. 13 B-25s went in, 13 came out. Perfect mission. Flawless victory. Nate should feel proud, vindicated, like the hero everyone will say he is. Instead, he feels sick. Form up. Head for home. Bombers gather into formation, black shapes against morning sky, and turn south. Behind them, ocean keeps burning. 8,000 men who left Rabaul yesterday will never see Leh, will never see home, will never see anything again. Nate flies in silence. Morrison is crying. Hayes stares at nothing, hands shaking. In 10 other aircraft, 120 men process what they've just done, what they've become. They don't speak, don't celebrate. They just fly. And below, in burning water, Captain Kenji Morita's photograph finally settles on the surface. Faces of his wife and daughters, smiling in sunshine, slowly soaking through with oil and salt. For a moment, it floats, then flames reach it, and it burns too. The runway at Port Moresby appears through haze like a promise of safety nobody quite believes. Nate brings Hellfire in low landing gear, groaning as it extends, tires barking against concrete, already shimmering in morning heat. The B-25 rolls to a stop, engines wind down, propellers slow, stop, tick in sudden quiet. For a moment, nobody moves. Nate sits, with hands still on controls, staring at nothing. Morrison has stopped crying. Now he just breathes, in and out, like he's trying to remember how. Behind them, 12 more B-25s land in sequence. Perfect formation, perfect execution, not a single aircraft damaged, not a single man wounded. Flawless victory. Ground crews run toward them, cheering, waving caps. They've heard reports, 13 bombers out, entire Japanese convoy destroyed. Every ship sunk or burning, every soldier lost. The greatest naval victory of the Pacific War. And it only cost 15 minutes. Nate unbuckles his harness. His fingers feel numb. His whole body feels numb, like he's watching a stranger pilot a stranger's body through the motions of survival. The canopy opens. Hot air rushes in, carrying the smell of aviation fuel and tropical rot and something else. Smoke from fires still burning 200 miles north, or maybe just his imagination. He climbs down the ladder. His legs nearly give out. Garrett Callahan is first to reach him. The engineer runs across tarmac, coveralls still stained with grease, face split, with a grin so wide it looks painful. "Nate! Jesus, you did it! The whole convoy! They're saying it's the greatest—" Nate shoves him away. Hard, Garrett stumbles back, grin faltering. "Nate? Don't tell me what a great victory it was, what? But you changed everything. You proved the concept. I saw his face." The words stopped Garrett cold. "What?" "The destroyer captain, Morita. I was close enough to see his face." Nate's hands shake. He can't make them stop. 42 years old, wife, 2 daughters. I know because I watched him reach for their photograph right before my bombs tore his ship apart. Garrett opens his mouth, closes it. Around them, other pilots climb from aircraft. Some vomit on tarmac, others sit on the ground, staring at nothing. Fletcher Hayes stands by Hellfire 6, face the color of old paper, eyes red. "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" Nate's voice rises. "Your innovation, your answer, to make their deaths matter." Nate, "Well, congratulations, Garrett, it worked. Your wife and daughters can rest easy, because I just killed 8,000 men to balance the scales." The engineer flinches like he's been slapped. Neither speaks. Then Garrett, quietly, "Does it feel like enough?" Nate looks at him, really looks, sees the grief in those eyes, the hope that maybe violence could heal the wound bleeding for 16 months. "No," Nate says softly. "It doesn't feel like anything at all." He walks away, leaving Garrett standing alone, surrounded by cheering crews who don't understand that victory and celebration are not the same thing. Captain Morrison finds Nate 2 hours later, sitting on an empty fuel drum behind the operations tent, smoking. Morrison doesn't announce himself, just sits on an adjacent drum. They don't speak for a long time. Finally, Morrison breaks the silence. "Sir, I'm transferring out. Transport command, no more combat." Nate nods, understands. "The things we saw today, well, I can't do that again." "Neither can I, Morrison." They sit in silence a moment longer. "For what it's worth, sir, you saved thousands of American lives today, and took 8,000 Japanese ones. War isn't fair, sir. It's just war." Morrison stands, extends his hand. They shake. Two men who flew through hell together and came out changed. Morrison walks away. Nate never sees him again. General Kenny finds him an hour later, still on that fuel drum. The general doesn't announce himself, just sits down, pulls out a cigarette, lights it from Nate's. They smoke in silence. Finally, Kenny speaks. "Preliminary reports confirm 8 transports destroyed, 4 destroyers sunk, 8,000 enemy killed. No American casualties." He takes a drag. "Washington is calling it the most decisive tactical victory in the Pacific Theater." Nate doesn't respond. "They want to give you the Distinguished Service Cross. Probably a promotion, definitely a press tour. You'll be a hero, Major." "I don't want it." "I know." "Then why are you here?" Kenny looks at him. 52 years old, 3 wars, thousands of men sent to their deaths with the stroke of a pen, and somehow still capable of compassion, because someone needs to tell you that what you're feeling, that sickness in your gut, that's what keeps you human. He ashes his cigarette. "The day you stop feeling it is the day you become the thing we're fighting. I looked him in the eyes, sir, Captain Morita, and killed him anyway." "Yes. How do I live with that?" Kenny is quiet for a long time. "You don't. You just carry it. And you hope carrying it means something." He stands, drops his cigarette, grinds it under heel. "The ceremony is at 1600. You don't have to smile. You don't have to pretend. But you do have to show up, because those men in your squadron are looking to you to tell them how to process this." He walks away. At 15:55, Nate stands up, brushes ash from his uniform, and goes to accept a medal he doesn't want for a victory that feels like defeat. The ceremony is brief. Kenny reads citations, pins medals on 13 men who don't feel they deserve them, makes a short speech about courage and innovation and the future of warfare. Personnel applaud. Pilots stand at attention, faces blank, eyes distant. When it's over, Fletcher Hayes approaches, the Distinguished Service Cross heavy on his chest like an accusation. "Sir, can I ask something?" "Quick, Lieutenant." Hayes's voice drops to barely a whisper. "I shot men in lifeboats, unarmed, trying to escape. Does that make me a murderer?" Nate looks at this boy, because that's what he is, 26 and already broken, and wishes he had an answer that would help. "In war, Lieutenant, we're all killers. The question isn't whether we killed, it's whether we killed for the right reasons. And did we?" Nate thinks about transport ships full of soldiers who would have landed at Leh, who would have killed Americans.
Who would have pushed into New Guinea, Australia, places where more brothers like Thomas would have bled out? Yes, we did. Then why does it feel so wrong? Because you're not a monster, Hayes. The day it stops feeling wrong is the day you become one. The lieutenant nods slowly, doesn't look convinced. But at least he looks like he might survive the night. He salutes, walks away.
Leaves Nate alone with his medal and memories and the weight of 8,000 deaths hanging around his neck like stone. 200 miles north, Rabaul Harbor, Admiral Takeshi Yamada sits in a hospital bed, left arm in sling, torso wrapped in bandages already seeping red. He's one of 800 survivors out of 8,000. The doctor says he's lucky. Yamada doesn't feel lucky. Lieutenant Kurosawa enters carrying a clipboard and barely controlled panic. Admiral, Tokyo demands a full report. They're having trouble accepting casualty figures. Tell them to accept reality. 8 transports, 4 destroyers, all lost. The 51st Division is gone. Kurosawa swallows hard. Sir, they're asking how this could happen, how an entire convoy, protected by the umbrella of steel, could be destroyed in 20 minutes. Yamada closes his eyes, sees it again. American bombers, black against blue, flying so low they kicked up spray. Guns that shouldn't exist, bombs that skipped across water before tearing through steel. Tell them we were defeated by innovation, by an enemy that cared more about winning than honor, by mechanics who turned bombers into weapons we never imagined. But, sir, the umbrella of steel was pointing at the sky, Lieutenant, while death came from the waves. He opens his eyes. Tell Admiral Yamamoto the Americans have learned to fight a war we don't know how to win. Tell him, unless we adapt, we will lose everything, Kurosawa writes frantically. And, sir, what should I tell the families? Yamada thinks about Captain Morita, about the photograph fluttering across the bridge, about wives and daughters waiting for men who will never come home. Tell them their sons died bravely. Tell them it was honorable. Was it, sir? Yamada looks at the ceiling. No, but it's all we have left to give them. Tokyo, March 5th, 1943. Imperial Naval Headquarters receives the report at 0300. For 2 hours nobody speaks. Then Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor, victor of a dozen battles, stands before assembled staff. Gentlemen, the Americans have learned from us faster than we have learned from them. Silence. The Bismarck Sea convoy was defeated not by superior numbers, not by better pilots, but by men willing to abandon doctrine for adaptation. He looks around the room. They took a bomber and turned it into something new. They attacked from an altitude we deemed impossible. He pauses. And it worked. A colonel speaks. Sir, surely this is an anomaly. One battle just killed 80% of the 51st Division. One battle proved our anti-aircraft doctrine obsolete. One battle showed every garrison in the Pacific that convoys can no longer move in daylight. Yamamoto's voice is soft, which makes it more terrifying. This is not an anomaly, Colonel. This is the future, and we are on the wrong side of it. He walks to the Pacific map, traces supply lines with his finger, lines that suddenly look impossibly fragile. From this moment, all convoy movements occur at night. All reinforcements go by submarine or destroyer run. Lae will not be reinforced. New Guinea will fall within 6 months. Sir, the Americans have shown us what warfare looks like when imagination defeats tradition. Unless we match their innovation, we have already lost. The room erupts in protest. Yamamoto silences it with a raised hand. The ocean we once controlled now belongs to whoever controls the air above it. And that, gentlemen, will never again be us. 20 years later, April 1963, United States Air Force Academy, Colorado Springs. Lieutenant Colonel Nathaniel Blackwood, retired, teaching as civilian instructor, stands before a lecture hall full of young cadets who weren't born when the Pacific War ended. They're eager, fresh-faced, ready to learn about glory. Nate is about to disappoint them. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea lasted 15 minutes. 13 B-25 bombers destroyed an entire Japanese convoy, 8 transports, 4 destroyers, 8,000 casualties, American losses, 0. Cadets lean forward. Here comes the heroism story. It was the most successful tactical strike in the Pacific theater. It changed naval doctrine forever, proved innovation defeats tradition. He pauses. It was also the worst day of my life. Cadets blink. This isn't the story they expected. I led that mission. I flew at 50 feet. I looked the enemy captain in the eyes through my gun sight. Watched his ship break in half. Watched 8,000 men die. He looks around the room. And I came home to medals and people calling me a hero. A hand raises, young cadet, barely 20. Sir, but you saved countless American lives, stopped an invasion. Isn't that worth everything? Nate finishes. Maybe, but here's what they don't tell you in history books. Victory has a cost. That cost isn't measured in aircraft lost or men wounded. It's measured in pieces of yourself you leave behind, in faces you can't forget, in knowledge you did the right thing, and it feels exactly like the wrong thing. Silence. I'm telling you this because someone should have told me. War rewards innovation. It rewards those willing to change, to adapt. The Bismarck Sea proved that. He leans against the desk. But it also proved something else. That the men who drive change, they carry it for the rest of their lives. He dismisses class early, walks to his office, closes the door. For the first time in months, he lets himself remember. Port, Moresby, New Guinea, April the 20, 1963. Nate Blackwood returns for the first time in 18 years. The airfield is different now. Civilian, quiet. No bombers on tarmac, no smell of fuel and fear. Just tourists and cargo planes and the slow business of peace. He stands at runway's edge, looking north toward the Bismarck Sea. It's beautiful, blue and endless and completely indifferent to the men who burned here 2 decades ago. Behind him, footsteps, he turns. Fletcher Hayes, older now, colonel's eagles on shoulders, but still that same haunted look in his eyes. Major Blackwood? Colonel Hayes. Nate extends his hand. Heard you're teaching at Nellis now. Someone has to make sure the next generation doesn't make our mistakes. Hayes looks out at ocean. Does it ever get easier, carrying it? No, but you learn to carry it better. Hayes nods. Sarah finally left me. Couldn't live with someone who wakes up screaming 3 times a week. I'm sorry. Don't be. I don't blame her. How can you love someone still fighting a war that ended 20 years ago? They stand in silence. 2 men who changed history. 2 men who paid for it every day since. Hayes looks at him. Do you ever wonder if it was worth it? Every day, and I still don't know. But I know we couldn't have done nothing. Hayes nods slowly, salutes, walks away. Nate watches him go, then turns back to the ocean. More footsteps. An old man in coveralls, thin now, grey, but the eyes are the same, Garrett Callahan. They haven't spoken since 1946. Since the argument that ended their friendship. Since Nate said things he regretted and Garrett refused to forgive. But here he is. Heard you were in town, Garrett says quietly. Heard you never left. Couldn't. This place, it's where everything changed. Nate nods, understands. They stand side by side, two old men looking at an ocean that holds too many ghosts. "I'm sorry," Nate says, "for what I said after the mission, about your family, about the guns. You were right to say it. No, I was hurting, wanted you to hurt too." Garrett is quiet a moment. "Did it work? The guns, did they make it matter?" Yes and no. They saved thousands of American lives, but they also took 8,000 Japanese lives. I don't know how to balance that equation. Neither do I. They watch waves roll in. "I think about them sometimes," Garrett says. "My wife, my girls, wonder if they'd be proud or ashamed. They'd understand you did what you thought was right. Like you did. Like we all did." The sun begins to set, gold and crimson across water. 15 minutes, Garrett says softly. That's all it took to change everything. 15 minutes to change the war. 20 years to understand what it cost. Was it worth it? The question hangs between them like smoke. Nate thinks about Thomas, about soldiers who survived because the 51st Division never reached Leh, about Hayes learning to be human again, about Yamada finally understanding. I don't know, but I know someone had to pay the price for change, for refusing to die the way we were told to die, and that someone was us. That someone was us. They stand together, watching the sun sink into the Bismarck Sea. Kagoshima, Japan. Same day. Takeshi Yamada, 75 years old, walks the beach where he walked as a boy before wars and defeats. A young reporter from Tokyo approaches, notebook in hand, questions about the Pacific War. "Admiral Yamada, when you think about Bismarck Sea, what comes to mind?" The old man is quiet for a long time. Ocean rolls in, peaceful, clean, no oil, no fire, no screams. I think about Captain Morita, how he believed discipline and tradition would save him. "And you, sir, what do you believe now?" Yamada watches waves. "I believe we lost not because we were weaker, but because we loved the past more than we feared the future." He turns to the reporter. "The Americans showed us something that day, that survival belongs to those who adapt, who change, who refuse to let tradition become a cage. Do you hate them for it?" "Hate them?" Yamada almost smiles. "No, I'm grateful. They taught us the most important lesson anyone can learn, which is that the future belongs to those willing to abandon the past, and the only choice we have is whether to change with it or die clinging to what we were." He walks away, leaving the reporter scribbling, trying to capture wisdom that can't quite be written down. Nate Blackwood stands on Port Moresby runway as darkness falls, watching the last light fade from the Bismarck Sea. Garrett stands beside him. Hayes has already left. Morrison is somewhere in California teaching flight school. The war is over, the battle's fought, the medals awarded, but the weight remains. "You know what I realized?" Nate says quietly. "What's that?" "We didn't just change naval warfare that day. We changed ourselves. Proved that human beings can adapt to anything, even killing 8,000 people in 15 minutes, even living with that for the rest of our lives." Garrett nods slowly. "Evolution always wins," Nate continues, "but the cost is carried by men like us, by ones willing to look the enemy in the eyes and pull the trigger anyway, by ones who survive the battle but spend the rest of their lives wondering if we survived as heroes or as something else." "And which do you think we are?" Nate looks out at the dark ocean, at the place where Captain Morita's photograph rests on the bottom, faces long since faded. "I think we're just men who changed the world in 15 minutes and spent the rest of our lives learning to live with what that required." The ocean is dark now, silent, peaceful, as if none of it ever happened. But they know better. Someone always remembers.